Greetings, people of Earth. Well, it's that time of the year again. That time of the year where we tell ourselves, I wish there were more Christmas movies like Die Hard. If you're looking for an offbeat Christmas movie, where do you turn to? Well, my friends, I have good news for you. I have watched so far 1104 science fiction movies, and here are my 7 off-kilter Christmas movie recommendations to replace Die Hard on your list. Number 7 is I Come in Peace from 1990 with Dolph Lundgren. It was directed by Craig R. Baxley. More on him in a second. So that's the closest to Die Hard, with number 1 on the list. A little spoiler here, but it's probably the closest to Die Hard because fundamentally I Come in Peace is just the average 90s 1990 cop movie. Feels very much like the McBain parody in The Simpsons. Stars Dolph Lundgren as, you know, the tough cop who doesn't play by the rules, you know, with a new partner, the FBI, the straight-laced FBI guy, and they're running after drug dealers. So every conceivable cliche of the 90s cop movie is in there, except for one thing. The main bad guy is this towering 12-foot-tall albino alien, an alien drug dealer and a serial killer, obviously, because he goes around killing people to extract the endorphins from our brain, because it's a priceless drug on their planet. Because we know this because on top of the FBI guy, Dolph Lundgren has another new partner in the shape of an alien who explains it to him. And so they're going to be exploding things and shooting at each other with futuristic strange weapons, which are very cool actually. And with a very cool John Carpenter-like soundtrack, synthy soundtrack, which is actually, the soundtrack is very good, but the story itself is kind of stupid, but it's goofy fun. And the alien, every time he kills somebody, the evil alien, he says, I come in peace, because he comes from the James Bond, Clint Eastwood line of pithy one-liners, if you like. He only knows the one. He knows the one pithy, line. I always thought he learned it by copying the Voyager, signal or something. Where did he learn that sentence? Anyway, it's a cool movie. As I said, it's good, goofy, stupid fun, but it is fun. And Dolph Lundgren, he's not exactly, he won't be playing King Lear anytime soon, but he's a smart guy in real life, and he's nice. He's worth our time. And considering Craig R. Baxley, about him, just a quick little bit of trivia before I go to number 6. The guy who directed this movie, okay, you've seen him before. If you're a Pink Floyd fan, you've seen him on the cover, in the inside cover of Wish You Were Here, because the picture of the guy, diving in the lake with the feet sticking out, that guy directed I Come in Peace, Craig R. Baxley. So he has that going for him. So there's a nice, Pink Floyd connection, very distant connection. It's the most Die Hard. It's on number 7, I Come in Peace. It's fun. Number 6 is Gremlins. So it's kind of surprising because Gremlins is very, very well known. It's a cult movie, well loved by tons of people, including myself, though I admit I haven't seen it in a long time. But for some strange reason, it's rarely mentioned in the list of Christmas movies. So it's popular enough to feel like it should be on those lists, but you rarely see it. So I'm mainly mentioning it here to remind ourselves that it's completely a Christmas movie. So the kid, his father, buys him a Mogwai. He goes to this magic pet shop. He buys a little teddy bear creature, but you can't feed them after midnight because they turn evil otherwise. And if you put water on them, they multiply. And there's a few rules like that. And obviously all these things happen and all hell breaks loose. And there's also in the movie a commentary about, selfishness and generosity and the actual spirit of Christmas. So it's a very smart movie. It's a very cool movie. So I was reading online that it was in the theater. It came out in the summer, actually, not in the Christmas time, and it was in the theaters at the same time as Indiana Jones 2, Temple of Doom, and Ghostbusters. So it's that period of highly creative, very well-made movies in Hollywood in the 80s, and it has that feel, but it has the Joe Dante creativity. It has, I was presented or produced by Steven Spielberg, so it has some of that flavor. So yeah, Gremlins, you've probably seen it, 12, 50 times, and but again, we rarely think of watching it during Christmas time, and it is a Christmas movie. And let's start a new tradition of watching Gremlins every Christmas. Number 5, that one is not well known at all. It's called Zero Population Growth, ZPG. It's a 1972 movie. It's an overpopulation movie from the 70s. And it stars Oliver Reed and Geraldine Chaplin, daughter of Charlie Chaplin. And like most overpopulation movies, like, Soylent Green and so forth, those movies tend to also be they're not very good. They're not smart. They're trying to be smart, but they're not. There's a famous, anecdote, very famous polemic, if you like, from the 19th century between Karl Marx and Malthus, who was the main proponent of the idea of overpopulation. Malthus had put forth some math, and concluded based on his mathematics that, we would run out of food to feed everybody. And Karl Marx, you might, you think what you want of him, but he demonstrated pretty eloquently, I thought, that Malthus's math doesn't hold up, actually. And the main point of the overpopulation theme in general is just to say that, yeah, why bother sharing our resources? Because there's too many of us. So let's go to in the dystopian. Better have dystopia than sharing, because why bother sharing? So usually behind the idea of overpopulation, that's the actual narrative. And that's kind of what we have here. It's in the future, and there's too many people, so the government bans, pregnancies, but it makes zero sense. But what the movie does have going for it, it's not smart, but it presents with zero budget, a series of very creative vignettes about a dystopian future. Like, there's no trees anymore, for instance, but people walk in line like for half an hour or 2 hours in the museum to be able to watch one tree, And Oliver Reed and Geraldine Chaplin, they play a couple who work in that museum, essentially, and they're recreating scenes from pre-dystopian days, for instance, where they're having friends for dinner and they're having a bottle of wine, and people, pay money to see that, because it's inconceivable nowadays to have, an actual turkey, for instance. So, and there's tons of kind of interesting things, ideas like that. The outside of the city is basically done with a Doctor Who budget. It looks like a Doctor Who episode from the 1960s. I mean, it's really on that level of, built with shoeboxes, essentially. But they do manage to create some interesting, visuals, cheap looking, but creative and interesting. And it's filled with fog, because that hides all the cheap looking details, but it's still atmospheric. So what it has going for it is all those little nice creative touches, that create this dystopian future. And it is definitely a Christmas movie, especially in the middle, but it's the core moment of the movie. It's the moment where a couple decides to illegally have a baby, and how they'll manage to hide it and so forth, and lots of things go wrong in their plan, obviously. It centers around Christmas, and they buy an actual Christmas tree on the black market, and they get in trouble with their neighbors, and the Christmas flavor is very present in the middle. So it's one of those movies where halfway through you realize, oh my God, it's a Christmas movie. And the ending, I thought the ending is kind of cool. I like the ending. A bit of a THX feel, very like ambivalent, but very interesting. So while, as I said, zero population growth is not really good, it has serious flaws in it, it's still worthwhile because it has lots of nice creative touches, lots of them. And Oliver Reed is so-so, but he's charismatic, but he doesn't do much. But Geraldine Chaplin, she's really, really good in this one. And as I said, the ending I thought was, I liked it. I thought it was evocative. It was, kind of poetic and creepy and strange. So worth your while. An obscure choice for sure for your Christmas list and worth checking out. Number 4 is Legend of Hell House from 1973. So this is this one is great because it's for the people who want a Christmas movie which is 100% a Christmas movie, but which has exactly 0% Christmas in it. So it's a haunted house movie with Roddy McDowall and Clive Revel, who played, I think, the voice of the Emperor in the original Empire Strikes Back. So before Ian McDiarmid was put back in, and he's really, really good in this. Clive Revel, he's actually fantastic in this movie. So is Roddy McDowall, but he's essentially always great. And the idea is that we have this manor, which was built by one of the most evil men in U.S. history, and he was a sexual pervert, like BDSM, heavily into all those things. But he was cruel, he was sadistic, he would do black magic and all those things, like a Gilles de Rais kind of figure. And he died many years ago, but now the house is one of the most haunted in the world. And Roddy McDowall is a survivor of the previous attempt, like 10 or 20 years earlier, to exorcise the house, essentially. So now he's brought along with a team, they're led by Clive Revel. The team of scientists will go into the house and try to figure out if it is indeed haunted, and if so, try to find a scientific way to exorcise the house. So again, it's completely, this greatly surprised me when I watched the movie, because it's totally science fiction. Actually, they have an actual machine with actual technology, which kind of somewhat makes sense, which kind of feels like the PK meter, like the kind of science in Ghostbusters, if you like. Which not to spoil it for you, but the science works, in that movie. So it is a science fiction movie, but with heavy horror elements, it is again a ghost story, and crucially it takes place during Christmas week, so the days leading up to the 24th and 25th. Definitely the big confrontation with the evil essentially happens on midnight on the 24th. So while some people are eating their turkeys and opening their presents, our heroes are confronting the most evil ghost in the history of mankind. And it's a really atmospheric movie. It looks great. It's written by Mathewson, based on his novel, Richard Mathewson. So his stuff is always fantastic. So you have a really cool looking, very atmospheric, very smart movie, ghost movie, science fiction movie with great actors, and it's set on Christmas. So if you want, again, a Christmas movie which is completely Christmas but has zero, they don't mention it, they never mention it, there's no caroling. You just see December 24th on the screen. So if that's what you're looking for, that's the one you want. It's great. Legend of Hell House is really, really good. Number 3 is The Golden Grain. So this is like, this is an Italian movie from 1998. And it was recommended to me by a friend who passed away this year, like Mr. Book. He had a blog on WordPress, a WordPress blog called Rivets on the Poster, and I love that guy. So this one's for you. He recommended that to me, and I waited until a couple of days ago, so Christmas time, to watch it. It's a movie by Alvaro Passeri from 1998. It's so where the Italian cinema, like cheap science fiction, fantasy, Italian movies were a big thing in the 60s, in the 70s, and in the 80s. But at the end of the 80s, the Italian cinema industry collapsed for a variety of reasons. And Golden Grain is a movie, like, it's 10 years after the collapse, 10 years after the fall of the Italian movie industry in many ways. And what they tried to do here is make a new Christmas classic. You know, it looks like a Hallmark, Christmas card. It totally looks like that. And the visuals, I'll give it to the movie. The visuals are really cool, actually. However, it's completely insane. It's kind of like a never-ending story movie where the heroine, it's a girl instead of a guy, and she's kind of a cross between the Silver Surfer and Conan the Barbarian, and the bad guy is an Emperor of the Galaxy type of figure, and she's hope and fantasy, and he's science and ray guns and cyborgs, and he has actual Terminators. They're called that, There are two stories at the same time. This is the never-ending story part of it. Because we have a family, an Italian family, presumably in their cottage somewhere. The little girl is very, very sick, so the mother is worried, and the father is working in the mine, and the grandfather is, putting candles in the tree, and the mother is making the turkey, and the little brother is reading the magical book to the little girl. And there's an intrigue at the same time, because there's a guy who's pretending to be their friend, but he's actually evil, and he wants to steal their house or something. And so we have these two stories at the same time, and what goes on in the book is reflected, in the real life. It's very goofy. The core of the movie is the Conan Silver Surfer girl. She has a little dog, and they're both, put in a video game, fighting dinosaurs and plenty of stuff like that. And it makes little sense, the movie, and narratively it goes all over the place, and it's not coherent. It's a mess, and the dialogue is terrible, and the actors aren't good, and yeah, most of it is terrible. The direction is the editing doesn't work, but it's very odd and strange, and I can see why my friend liked it, because it's very, very creative, and it does look good. It's hampered by the clumsy editing and directing and the poor acting, but there's still something very, very visually creative in the movie, and you can definitely say that lots of stuff happens. So this is one of the most obscure movies on the list, probably the most obscure. So it really tries very, 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 very hard to be a Christmas movie. So if you're looking for the most obscure science fiction fantasy movie, which approximately no one on earth has ever heard of, and kind of feels like a Christmassy endless story with cyborgs in it, well, that's the one. Golden Grain, I think it's on YouTube. Number 2, this one is also very obscure, but completely different feel. It's War of the Worlds Next Century. It's a Polish movie from 1981 by Piotr Shulkin. He's a very highly regarded, a legendary film director. He's famous for his End of the World tetralogy. So John Carpenter did his wonderful End of the World trilogy with The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and I think Mouth of Madness is the third one. So Piotr Shulkin is kind of like that, and like Carpenter, Shulkin has an insanely rich visual style. You know, the Carpenter movies were in many ways criticism of the 80s, the American 80s, you know, like the selfishness and The Thing, that's a big part of it. And, you know, in They Live, famously, it's, you know, the capitalism and all these things. War of the Worlds Next Century, the Shulkin movies, those are the famous, you know, famous subversive anti-communist movies. And very often in the West, we kind of have this idea that movies from Eastern Europe are always either propaganda or anti-communist subversions, and that's rarely the case. It's a gross oversimplification. We believe that because of our own propaganda, essentially. But in the case of this one, that's definitely what it is. It's set at Christmas time. There are Christmas trees everywhere. And the idea is that the Martians have already invaded Earth. Okay? And we see it in the beginning of the movie, like in the intro, and we see it through news footage. And our hero is a news presenter. The aliens have already conquered Earth. They have won. Okay? And they have taken control of the institutions and the narrative, and they're vampires. Okay, we learned that during the movie because they're organizing blood drives where people are obligated to. We have mandatory, you know, blood drives where we have to give blood in exchange for a food ration, right? And the journalists are going on about how great all this is, and the Martians are our friends, and they're wonderful, and they're nice, and they're funny, and they're like 3 foot tall, gray beings with, you know, silver, you know, winter coats or something like that. They're very goofy looking, with a little high-pitched voice. And the idea here is that it's an oppressive dictatorship ruled by the not only the Martians, but all the people who collaborate with them. But the core thing is that everybody in the movie is going along with it. So we have this very oppressive dystopia, but what the movie is mainly presenting is how everybody is complicit in those crimes, and which I find very relevant to the times we're in. And as I said, it looks great. It's very smart, very dark, but yeah, it feels like it's dark, but it feels kind of like a Terry Gilliam movies in many ways. Like, I'm pretty sure it feels like Terry Gilliam took some ideas or some. It's kind of the same sensitivity essentially. Kind of feels and looks like 12 Monkeys in certain ways. The main character, I'll finish on this with the movie. He's a big star actually in Poland. His name is Roland Wilhelmi. He was in Four Tank Man and a Dog, which is great actually. If you haven't seen this, like a TV series from on the World War II, whatever. He's a cult actor and he appears in lots of movies. And he's really very good in this. And the idea is that he plays this superficial news presenter, and his public persona is he's a clown, but it's all an act. And his wife gets kidnapped to force him into collaborating, but he would be collaborating anyway, you know. But he finds himself with no principles at the start of the movie, but growing into an ever-deepening sense of rebellion. But the movie is kind of like about how futile maybe rebellion can certainly feel in highly, you know, oppressive dystopian times. And it's completely a Christmas movie, you know, and it certainly informs the style, the colors, you know, the Christmas lights and Christmas trees, and it plays a big part into the feel of the movie. It's very present. So yeah, if you're looking for an Eastern, a great-looking, super smart, very interesting Eastern European Martian invasion movie, which is an allegory about communism, or even fascism, if you like. In this case, it's mostly communism, but it's the same thing. Like, the same principles apply. Collective complicity and self-delusion and all these things. And like, yeah, if you're looking for like an Eastern European, version of the Christmas movie, which is a political allegory, that's the one. War of the Worlds Next Century. Great movie. Great movie. That one's really, really good. Honorable mentions before my number one. Well, I have to mention, obviously, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. This is a list of movies you rarely see listed in science fiction Christmas movie list, if you like. And obviously, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is always the first one people talk about. Okay, but if you're not aware that it exists, then yeah, you definitely need to watch it. But ideally, you should watch it with friends and plenty of alcohol. Like, it's horrible, it's so awful, it's so bad. But there's a mystery science theater version of it. It's worth watching because it's so emblematic. It's our Christmas movie for science fiction fans. It's Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, but it has probably the worst Christmas song of all time. Hooray for Santa Claus, a.k.a. And it has Pia Zadora when she's 5 years old. It has green Martians called like Gobo and Zobo and stuff like that. They kidnap Santa Claus because the kids on Mars are depressed because they have no toys. I mean, it's something like that. It's but yeah, again, it's as bad as people say it is, but it's worth checking out for a science fiction movie fan. And if you have never heard of it, certainly, well, yeah, for a science fiction fan, it's we're duty bound to watch it at least once. Check out the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version. And other honorable mention before my number one is Day of the Beast. Now, this one isn't on the list, the official list, because there's no science fiction involved. It's a horror movie, but it's by Alex de Iglesias, who also did Acción Mutante. I think he's Spanish. I always forget to check, but he's one of my favorite modern directors. He's very smart, very visually creative, tons of super dark humor. And this one stars in one of the two main roles Santiago Segura, who was also in a ton of Spanish comedies. He was in Torrente, Dumb Armor of the Law. And the idea here is that a priest discovers that the Antichrist is about to be born on Christmas Eve. So it's set on December 23rd, 24th. And the Antichrist will be born, and he needs to, the priest wants to sign a pact with the devil in order to find out where the Antichrist is, in order to kill the Antichrist. So pretty grim stuff when you tell it like that. But it's actually incredibly funny and very visually striking, very smart, and also pretty poignant. Like, the end is very powerful. So it's an amazing movie, Day of the Beast. If you haven't watched it, it's worth checking out. It's a fantastic movie. But again, it's not science fiction, so it's only in the honorable mentions for this list. And number one of our offbeat science fiction movie recommendations, especially if you're looking for die-hard type of movies, number one is Trancers from 1984, the Charles Band movie, which launched a whole franchise. I think there's at least 5 Trancers movies, if not more. And again, this is completely a Christmas movie, and like essentially all the Charles Band movies, whether he produces them or directs the movies, here I think he does both. He certainly directed it. They're cheap, low budget movies, but again, super creative. This is a guy whose ethos, if you like, is because I can't compete with people on the budget level and the spectacle level, I will stuff the most creative, fun, intriguing, funny ideas I can in a 90-minute movie. And this is what we have here. So essentially we're in a dystopian future, feels very much like Blade Runner. And there's an evil warlord essentially called the Whistler, and he wants to conquer the world, and he has psychic powers, and he turns people into zombie-like creatures called Trancers. And on his heels is our hero, who's called Jack Death, because obviously he is, and Jack Death is brought out of retirement, I think, to track Whistler. He does capture him in like the beginning of the movie, like the first 10 minutes or something like that. He's on the verge of capturing the evil Whistler, but Whistler travels back in time to 1984, like Los Angeles, essentially. Jack Death goes after him, and the evil Whistler will try to find a way to get back to the future and take over the universe with his army of zombies, and Jack Death will try to stop him, and it's super fun. Okay, so for instance, okay, Jack Death travels back to Los Angeles, and he's kind of like, fish out of water. There's a lot of that, but he goes into the shopping mall with the Santa, with the kids, the shopping mall Santa, and he starts shooting everybody. And of course, people think he's the bad guy, but the evil Whistler possesses, the Santa Claus. So you have a zombie Santa Claus fighting Jack Death. So there's a kind of, that's the sort of little details or funny gags you have in the movie. But the future, the dystopian future is very interesting, and it's zero budget. There's nothing. They have no money, kind of like zero population growth, but they find a way to give it that, that Blade Runner feel. The time travel element is very imaginative because there's a machine, but mainly the time travel works via a drug. So they have to take a drug, and the drug transfers the consciousness of the person traveling in time to the body of an ancestor, somebody who shares the same DNA in the past. So it's very smart, very interesting, and the entire movie is kind of like that. Charles Band, you're always on the roller coaster ride of funny gags and smart details and a lot of tiny, interesting elements, and the main guy, the main character is called Tim Thomerson. He was in a lot of the Charles Band movies, and he really elevates it. Like, see, he's a B-movie actor, but he's on the cusp. Like, he's a guy who totally belongs in the B movies, but when you watch him, you can't help but tell yourself, this guy should be in A movies. He's like a B movie actor who feels like he should be, a Tom Cruise movie, if you like. Like, he's very, very good, very charismatic, and he does a lot of the heavy lifting in this movie. And I have to say also that the guy who plays Whistler, the bad guy, I forget, like, he hasn't played in a lot of movies. I think he was more a behind-the-scenes kind of guy normally. But he has this wonderful monologue, kind of like at the end of the movie, like, I will build a race of atomic Superman, kind of like that speech, like his I will conquer the world speech. And he really pulls it off, like I will conquer the world with my army of zombies, like the evil the James Bond villain speech. And I remember watching that and telling myself, he's really good. He's really, it's not everybody who can deliver a James Bond villain monologue and make you feel it, and he does it. So it's people doing crazy things at Christmas time and shooting at each other and traveling through time and, transforming into zombies, and there are twists and turns, and, a million things happen. So yeah, Trancers are really good. So if you want that, that roller coaster kind of action-y, but again, because Die Hard is action, but it's also smart, and it's also funny, and you have all these qualities in Trancers. on a low budget, but they're all there. And you even have some of the charisma because Bruce Willis was very charismatic. So Tim Thomerson, he's not Bruce Willis, but he can hold his own. Yeah, we even have the charismatic superstar, action hero. So for all those reasons, Trancers is my number one. So that was my gift for you, the greatest gift of all, the 7 offbeat science fiction movie recommendations. And do take care of yourself. And even though times may look hard sometimes, and sometimes people are kind of depressed during the holidays. The time of the holidays is also, the solstice, because it's when the darkest night has already passed and now the light is returning. And that is also what we're celebrating now. So may light shine in our heart and in our lives. And take care, and I'll see you real soon. Keep watching the skies, and Merry Christmas.